Hello and welcome everyone to this next Casual Conversations.
Yeah, welcome. Another day,
Another
new
day.
stuff that comes up.
Yeah. Yeah. And today we've decided that we want to bring the topic of fear of being alone more through in our conversation. And for me, this is also a deep one. I'm very connected to, if I just introduce this, um, fear of being alone actually brings up for me, now that I'm talking about it, now that I bring this forward, it brings up a fear of death, isolation, loss, and also even illness. It brings up a lot of feelings that are merged and identified with the idea of being alone, which actually has sabotaged me quite a bit in my life, away from wanting to be alone or becoming more autonomous and independent, even, and away from others. And yet that was a big part of my path in order to begin, which I'm not there yet, but in order to begin to break free from a lot of those deeply conditioned fears. Um, yeah, and I think, even already diving in, but even as I share that, I can feel that it's very much in my DNA, in my blood, my family bloodline. There's a lot of those deep cellular level fears of illness, death, suffering, loss. So there's a grief. So there's a lot of that baggage and burden that I was carrying that it overflows into and spills over into your own personal feelings, that when you come into this world as a baby and you have so much of that uh, almost imprinted onto you from your
Mhm.
environment and your family, it's an overwhelming traumatic feeling of fear that paralyzes, and it gets locked into your system. And as a result of that, you experience that reality as much bigger when you're really young and small. And
Yeah, and you don't
yeah,
really have a choice.
yeah,
The feelings come in and then it's there,
yeah,
and you didn't have any say in it. That's
yeah.
yeah,
And it's difficult then later on to separate from that place as well, to begin to feel an identification with your true who you are, separate from all those that stuff, that sticky stuff that's on you, let's say, and in you. And yeah, even that is a lot to talk about. But first, also, what do you want to share about this topic, Marlu, from your experience that you can bring to the viewers and the audience?
yeah. Um, for me, I have experienced episodes also of deep loneliness and loss,
Mm,
and I I realized that was also very deep in my family system,
mm,
um, and it came up for me to process through. Um, and when you're in those places of loneliness, um, it's like a depression state. You can feel like your whole world is like that.
mhm,
You know, you're and you if you experience it often, you're going to identify more like you and then your life, and it's like always the loss and the loneliness and the depression, and that's a very tough cycle where you can get in and trapped in,
mhm.
and yeah, that's like very tough.
Yeah, and I would say that I don't have the solution for anyone, because honestly, after all the work that I've done, and all the experience that I've built up and all the healings and teachers that I've had and everything, I've not found that any of those things really worked for me to fully feel like I've changed that state, or that lonely, depressive state that can overcome, and
Yeah.
that overtakes
The
that.
question is is it like an imprint in your mind
Mm,
that is like how you see the world first? Like the
mm-hmm,
first glasses you put on
mm-hmm.
is like this
It
still
may
this
be, yeah,
family system, and then it's like you feel all of those feelings related to that,
yeah. It's
you
like a
know?
filter, a glass that a pair of glasses that you put on immediately before
And
you
it,
even, so you don't even see life the way that a person seeing it differently would see life,
yeah,
before you even get
person
to
that,
experience what you're experiencing and do what you're doing. Yeah.
yeah, a person who doesn't have that kind of glasses, and then like it's like, okay, it's just like a layer where you're looking through, how deep is it in your system?
So here I would say what's interesting that comes up, which is not really new, but it's interesting in the conversation that we're having with the audience here. For those of you that also are like, oh yeah, I feel that too, and why does that come, and I don't know what to do and everything, and you can feel lost and hopeless, which reinforces that cycle. Is maybe it's not
Mm-hmm.
so much about, I mean, it's never really ideal, especially as our collective frequency resonant is slowly growing. The focus, our let's say our power of focus and manifestation of how we feel in our lives is getting stronger. So the more we focus on the pain or the problems, the more those also grow. So it becomes this difficult, tricky cycle where you have deep issues, but the more you're busy with them, the more you reinforce them. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that may be the case here is, rather than focusing on the depression, loneliness, isolation feeling, um, is there is maybe in that filter some frequencies that are missing of feelings, states that you don't feel. Because why do you feel bad looking through the lens into life? Is maybe because you don't have the ability to feel good in relation to what you're seeing in life. You don't feel joyful, you don't feel joy, you don't feel pleasure, you
Yeah.
don't feel yourself in the core of your being. I definitely
Mm-hmm.
resonate with that. So there's just an omittance, a missing out of certain experiential pieces that are much harder for you to access when you have this. Um,
Yeah, then you have to add more, like an imprint of, you need more an imprint of how life can be
mm,
in your system, because you
yeah.
have these, like, it feels like maybe in your family they have never experienced it,
Mm-hmm,
so it's not in the DNA, so it's the imprint for that frequency, for that sense of feeling of that emotion,
mm-hmm,
um, of that experience of life is not in your embedded in your system.
mm-hmm,
And for me, this was the case when in my family system, femininity, for example, wasn't really very deeply imprinted.
mm-hmm,
That wasn't really there as a very like strong feminine example. Like,
mm-hmm,
this is a woman and this is all what it takes to be a woman, and all the
mm-hmm,
frequencies are there. For me, it was like really like um, a small piece
mm-hmm,
of that womanhood, what I
mm-hmm,
was born into. And that can also be in a general feeling of life, how you experience like pleasure or joy
mm-hmm.
and those kind of things. You might not have even gotten an imprint of those in your like DNA or from your family system,
Yeah.
you know.
And it's
And
interesting
then you
because,
have you have to like notice that you're not focusing on, I have to get rid of this depression, But maybe the way for you is to add more joy to your life,
Exactly.
to get different imprints or new imprints for you, how life can be, that you need to experience. You know, it's not like you have to always like look for how do I get rid of this depression.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
can become depressed about that
Yeah.
like
It becomes a reinforcing cycle that reinforces itself. And
exactly.
there's two other things that come up. One was exactly what you were sharing, is I would call it modeling, is having a good example, having good examples of, in your case, feminine, but also masculine examples, role models, but also those with people that have more innate feeling to their goodness, to who they are, and to feeling at peace, feeling good with themselves, and whole and complete, without being
Mhm.
sort of feeling what comes up to share as maybe addicted to negativity, pain, lost, broken, in despair, needy, all of those kinds of states, narcissistic, that so many of us in society or in our even our family system encounter, that really bring us a standard state, a sort of default state that is not optimal
Yeah.
to know what it is like to feel good. And the second thing
Yeah.
is, what was the second thing? Oh yes, there's also a biochemical brain chemistry loop that I've been researching a lot. I mean, in the context of health, we haven't spoken about health so much yet, but
Mhm.
definitely also, it's not always only a simple spiritual story about, oh, there's a pattern here and there's a thing here and let's shift this and let's shift that. But there's also a tendency, if you've experienced long-term adverse states of being and mind, let's say, and you've struggled a lot and you have experienced a lot of difficulty, trauma, stress, unhappiness, unfulfillment, disappointment, etc. What can happen is, over time, your nervous system is very pliable and very plastic, and it takes on, especially if you already have these tendencies from very young, like many people in the sensitive spiritual world that are coming in more and more because they realize that they have sensitivities and they have abilities and they have different things. Well, they also
Mm.
tend to have often things that are abnormal to the norm, let's say, which is more like ADHD or as a child, or autism, and all of these types
Mhm.
of issues. And what they also, in some form, all refer to is that the brain in the development has somehow, through everything that we've done also in this world, toxins, poisons, stress, pollutions, and everything, the development has not properly taken place. And that can skew your perception to how reality really is from the start, which is what we were talking about.
Mhm.
And then it sets you up for experiencing things much more heavily, sensitively, your sensitivity incurring those experiences of life much more deeply as a
Yeah.
pain or as a suffering. And over time, your nervous system adapts over not even that long of a time, and it starts to build new circuits that are much more wired to experiencing the small things as something bad rather than something good. And then you get the scale, the dopaminergic scale in your brain. So this gets very deep already, but it can get so off that you have an inability to feel pleasure or goodness with small things, and you
Mm.
have a host and a range of things that feel bad very quickly, that bring you more of the same feeling. And
Mhm.
then when you have the amplification factor, where you're focusing on what you don't want, or getting away from all of that enormous burden of stuff that you don't want to feel, that may not even be so big, but in your mind it is, then you just get reinforced in that same cycle, and it becomes a nightmare in a way. And you have to find a way to reset that balance, come back to the small things, and they may also be the mundane and boring things, but do those and try and gain more nourishment from daily tasks of simple things in order to rebalance your system and recuperate. And then from there, go out to the bigger things again and find what you really want to do in life that gives you joy, that goes beyond the simple small things. And I've been through that cycle many times, and I'm still going through that cycle, and it's very tough. It's almost, it's like an addiction. It's like the withdrawing and releasing from a deep level addictions, but not per se any specific addiction, but just the general addicted nature of being in a state which isn't optimal that it should have been in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the brain is a very big factor in this. And also, when you have trouble in general, and this also has to do with your brain, is whether or not how good you can feel yourself in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you can place yourself in a room, on a chair, in the now moment, in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're very quickly pulled out of the present moment, then it's also easier for those like feelings to like take over, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And what really helps me sometimes is to do something with my hands.
Yeah.
You know, like art or drawing or simple household chores, you know, or cleaning up or whatever. It like it's very simple and focused, and um, it puts you more in your body.
Yeah.
And exercise also
Yeah.
is a really important thing. There are so many layers to this topic, you know. I mean, also food. This is a really big topic, you know,
Yeah.
how food has influence in on how you feel. But you know, you can feel for yourself if you tried a healthy diet and you still feel uh, in the same way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a reason to search even deeper, you
Yeah.
know. And yeah, this can be hard.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, yeah, all good tips, exactly. And there's also a physiological reason why doing things with your hands calms your nervous system. So that's definitely the calming input that your nervous system receives from doing things with your hands, um, which is very interesting. Um, and um, and exercise is very important to build some of those endorphins that give you the sense of being able to experience more pleasure, more goodness, more that you enjoy what you're doing more. Um, but yeah, I agree. Uh, I'm just wondering what else, because coming back to this topic that we've kind of sidetracked a little bit into from the fear of loneliness and isolation, I think that there's another aspect here, maybe if we still have a little bit of time to discuss, which is the experience of not feeling connected to a bigger community or to people in life as we're moving forward collectively
Mm.
together, in a way, all together as humanity, let's say, in that sense together. But there's so many split offs in terms of we're growing apart also, in a way, more, because there's foundational splits in the way that people perceive reality, and
Mm-hmm.
also in the, literally, I would say, I can't prove this, and I don't want to take all this information that I've received over time and learned as per definition it's all true. But let's say that I think right now that I do think that there's a sort of a frequency level that we innately have, and then things either match up or they don't match up. Same way as relationships work. You either feel you want to be together or you don't, and it doesn't
Mm.
work. It's a frequency. It's that what they call the law of attraction and all that. But it's and so as humanity, we have streams of division of frequency resonances on this journey, and I think
Mm.
that people that are following the path of truth and higher wisdom and goodness, they and are conscious of themselves, are going within, and like we said before, are on the path of awakening and are doing the deep work for that as well. It's only a small group, really. And I think, and if you're part of that group like we are, I think many people feel very alone in the sense that the
Mm.
deeper they go, the less and less of that depth of themselves they can really bring out and share to others in a way that connects them together. And that brings a lot of fear fear of isolation, fear of
Yeah.
separation, fear of loneliness, fear of dying alone, fear of never finding anyone, fear of never being together with people, with groups, with a partner, with life, with purpose, with a goal, with and I think many people struggle with that. I certainly do.
That's a tough one. It's like how more knowledge you become aware of on this awakening journey, the more you feel also, or you get to see in people how, on certain levels, how unaware they are in some aspects.
Mm,
And that can like turn you down in a sense like, oh, am I going to be the only one that is seeing this?
mm,
Or you might get a sense like nobody is like really, um, at least in my environment, people that are awakening, um, they are not so very present or very, out there with themselves because, there's a lot of like suppression also by people that like, the whole if you're different, then you better you don't want to stick your head above the cornfield, so to say.
yeah, this is a Dutch saying.
And
Yeah.
then yeah, and then you think you are really lonely, or you're the only one, or whatever. It's very easy to think that,
Mm,
because
mm,
also how the society is set up with all this. You have to have your things in order for yourself,
mm,
and it's all like better to live in one person in one house than live in community, or you better not live in your parents' house. And then we're much more separated now and living alone than in the early days. So that this is also a piece that's not really helping.
mm, mm,
And um yeah, and we have so much like information that is ready. We've also a big influence is social media that can make you feel like you don't have enough friends or whatever, or you're doing it wrong, or there's all these kind of like false ideas of life presented that aren't even reality, and that can, if you add all that to the mix, then you have to like become aware of all those levels, how much of this is playing out in your life. And then you have to feel like, okay, I don't want to stop doing that. I need to be aware of how I let myself be influenced by social media. Maybe there are people out there even in my environment, in my neighborhood, that are doing healing work
yeah.
or are on an awakening journey,
Mhm,
because you never know. You might find out that you go to an organic shop and you find your neighbor from 10 years ago is on an awakening journey also. you know, it's 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 easy to yeah, loneliness is tough, and it's easy to like, it's very present, and if you're feeling down, it's hard to like motivate yourself to get out of it and think positive, and that's not always helpful.
There's a few things that come up when you share that. One is that I know you do a lot with people that are unaware, for example, in work environments and things like that. You practice, you have more experience with that than me right now, in on the awakening journey, as I don't have work environments to practice this in. And you disidentify, or you are very aware of the unawareness of another person in the moment, right? And you practice not getting triggered by that or losing yourself in that process. Very important piece, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And one part of this is disidentification, in the sense that you let it go. If you have a lot of spinning plates, which you also mentioned to me the other day, Marlu, a lot of spinning plates that drive you crazy in life, sometimes the solution, the practical, real solution, is to not engage and to let the plates spin out of control, rather than try and prevent them from falling, which
Mm-hmm.
is the illusion that your mind gives you in order to keep you busy with the plates nonetheless, which
Mm-hmm.
re-engages the whole mechanism behind what you're trying to find a way out of.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And you
that's
try,
one part, right?
yeah, you try then to like, what about this plate? It
Yeah,
hasn't been resolved yet. I need to like
yeah.
put
Find a
a
solution.
resolution for it, um, and then my life will be okay. You know,
Yeah,
it's all these terms.
yeah.
You
And a
know?
second thing I would say, a second thing is I have my daylight lamp on here, and you can see it on the side of my face,
Yeah, yeah.
very
Mm-hmm.
bright. And it occurred to me while we're discussing this. I mean, it's not new, but it's something that really feels important for this topic, is as you feel more depressed and lonely, if you visualize that, it gets, maybe we can do a short meditation on this. You can imagine yourself, just to help the audience as well with a small meditation in this. Um, I'm considering whether I should share or just do the meditation and bring it in through the meditation.
You can do work while you share.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. So I'll bring it through in the last few minutes. If we all just sort of together, in a way, in time and space, whenever you're listening to this, we are in that moment connected together. And just take a moment to slow down your thinking, concentrate your focus on your body and your feeling, chest, the thorax, the front, or stomach area. And one of the things that you become really aware of your space and your surroundings, objects, things in your environment, and yourself placed within that environment, sitting on a chair maybe, or on a couch or whatever, physically touching surfaces, absorbing your present moment state, contrasting yourself in that environment stronger, which is part of spatial referencing. Very, very important. We'll talk about that more later. So just notice already the change in awareness of yourself and your body in this present moment. Do that. Now notice maybe the sense of darkness and despair that hangs over you, and depression, and loneliness, if that is something that you have access to, how that visually appears to you. It's a dark place, right? Feels kind of cold, dark, empty, not maybe much you can see, because it often is something that you can't really see and you can't really grasp it. It's not really tangible, which is also why it becomes an invisible spinning plate that you try and get rid of, that you can't. Now imagine just like this daylight lamp that I was referring to, bright, very bright white light, the core of your being. And it's maybe still a little dim for some of you. It's not a bright light yet, but it's like the lamp is just beginning to turn on. These light bulbs that incrementally grow or increase in light. And they are very dim to begin with, and then they become brighter and brighter and brighter. See that brightness growing in the center of your chest, that bright light at the core of your being. And feel that that brightness begins to permeate into the space of your body, around the head space, and around you into your surroundings, permeating the space of your environment. And notice as you access that brightness, that brilliance, that is the space that fills you in and fills in everything that is dark or heavy or feels separate from you or feels like despair, the unknown, the unseen. As you practice this more and more, you begin to increase that brightness that is, let's say, a reflection of your frequency resonance. As you grow and mature and strengthen yourself spiritually, that begins to replace some of those heavier and darker and lonely feelings that are spaces within you that are filling in with all that light, expanding around you, your lower body as well, around your legs. All the cells and tissues and organs fill with this pure white light, very high, very refined. Notice the stillness. Absorb all that nourishing energy. Relish in it. Take it in. Fill your cup. And for now, as we begin to come to an end of this mini meditation, let's come back into present moment space as you open your eyes when you're ready. Make sure that you just take a moment to just take a snapshot of the change of experience that you had, which can be quite profound for your system. Don't underestimate that. Maybe even drink extra water today. to purify and bring that deeper into your cells. And unfortunately, our time for today is almost up. How was that for you, Marlon? You're the only person right now that I can hear from.
It was very soothing.
Yeah.
And calming and very soft and gentle to sit in that. Yeah.
And it's interesting because this is another aspect that I want to share before we close. It's much more powerful when you're doing this intentionally from a purpose-driven action, like what I'm doing now, what we're doing now, and together with others. Even if those others may not necessarily be around yet, that doesn't matter, but just that intention and doing it from that place is very different than when I would do it for myself alone. So we need each other in a way to grow, mirror each other, support each other, grow together, learn from each other, heal, bring each other our gifts and potentials. A very important aspect, which we will talk about on another podcast, around community, the need for others, and the struggles with that. If there's anything you want to add, Marlu, otherwise we can round this call off. Is there anything you want to add to?
It was really good. Oh, I have nothing to add. I think we have a lot of things covered today. And yeah, just want to say thanks for everyone who's joining in and listening in.
Yeah.
And until next time.
Yes, one thing that I want to share before we end is become that bright light lamp that I was just referring to, that's sitting here next to me, to counter the dark. Not to fight the dark, but to become that bright light that fills you in from the inside, that automatically keeps the dark at bay. I think that's the wisdom that I want to share as we end. And that counts for me too, very much. All right. So yeah, until next time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.